perfectly depicted. Chloe Walsh really knows how to depict this storyline in a way that will keep you aware of how people work and process and look in these kinds of circumstances. We are back for another Christian review of regular books, and today we are discussing Binding 13 and Keeping 13. Let's get into it. For those of you who haven't seen one of these videos before, here's how it's going to go down. First, I do my regular review, what you know and love to expect from a book review, and my own personal opinion, and then I'm going to get into my Christian review. And that's where I'll go over the basic pieces of a book that may or may not have a fellow believer or anyone wanting to read it. I give more caveats and any more information you may need about these reviews at the video that's pinned at the top of the playlist. It's also here somewhere, so click on over there. Let's go ahead and get into my regular review. Binding and Keeping 13 are part of the Boys of Tommen series, and there is a much more extensive universe to this series. However, each of the book sets or each of the numbers has to do with a couple or a character. And so I decided to split up my reviews based off of which number, aka which character, the book is talking about. The 13s are the first installment and the books you should read first in the series, and they go over Johnny Kavanaugh, who's number 13, and Shannon Lynch. You get to know a lot about the family dynamics in this book. You get to know a lot about the characters and all of the other characters that are going to be in the follow-up book. So it is a requirement to read these books first. I had these books so highly recommended to me from a friend who was just completely enthralled by this storyline. However, I've also been told on multiple occasions that this book is very, very heavy, and those who told me that were not wrong. It is more of a romance drama, lifetime drama, and although these characters are young, as in they call it secondary school because it takes place in Ireland, but it's like our high school here in the United States, it is also not a YA book. This is truly intended to be a new adult to a full adult book because of the content that is in this book. As someone who has been through a fair bit of big circumstances, especially around domestic violence, which these books deal a lot with, I absolutely was moved by these books, by the storylines, by the characters, and everything that happened along with it. Binding 13 is when you first meet Shannon and Johnny Kavanaugh. You get to meet them as Shannon starts at this new private school where Johnny already is, and you get to follow their relationship over the course of the two pieces. I absolutely fell in love with the characters in this book. I will say that the books start a bit slow and they're very heavy. They often leave you just heartbroken or traumatized, truly, and it takes a while for you to kind of recover from what happens. However, Chloe Walsh's writing style is impeccable, and she definitely keeps me wanting to come back for more. Generally, whenever I'm reading a book that's in a series, I will read one book in the series and then take a break and then go back. Even when there's a cliffhanger, even when it's hard, I generally can take a break in between. I did not want to take a break between Binding and Keeping 13. It feels like one book. It really feels like one storyline, one book, and you need the whole storyline before you can move forward. I did like Binding 13 just minorly more. I rated it 4.5 stars. I liked where it ended up, and the end of Binding 13 is so intense. That is such an intense way to end the book that I went directly into Keeping 13. Keeping 13 is a beautiful book. I think it does a really great job of telling the rest of their story and their relationship dynamics and everything that comes along with it. However, my experience, now having read even more of the Boys of Tommen series, is those second books sometimes get a little bit long and drawn out and almost have too much storyline for just a second book. You need a third book on top of that. The second book, which is Keeping 13, I ended up rating 4 stars. There's a lot to discuss in the Christian review section of these books, so let's go ahead and get on over there. Before we do that, I also just want to let you know that you can see everything that I'm reading and rating in real time by following me on Goodreads. You can also find me on Instagram, TikTok, and I do have my own YouTube channel. Everything you need to follow any of those places is down below in the description box. Now let's check out that Christian review. The first category I love to touch on because it's popular is smut or spice. And yes, there is spice in these books. It is more in Keeping 13 than it is in Binding 13. However, it does exist in both. And even when there's not explicitly described spicy scenes, there is a fair bit of discussion around sex, around sexuality, around genitalia, and like everything that comes along with that. So it is just kind of dealing with it more even though it's not explicitly scenes happening. The second category is explicit language, and like I just kind of previously mentioned with Smut or Spice, yes, explicit language does exist in these books. It is a fair bit, and there is also a fair bit of explicit language around spice and stuff like that. The third category is violence and gore, and there is a fair bit of violence and gore. It is specifically around abuse, domestic violence, bullying, and overall fighting and aggression, but there is a lot. And it's even more in Keeping 13 than it is in Binding 13. This is the category and the aspect that I think requires you to really have a knowledge of what's in there so you can make a decision that's best for you. There are trigger warnings to the beginning of her books in each book, and so I think that would help guide you if you are concerned at all. However, I also just want to address it here. Each of the books and the characters deal with one specific thing, and in the 13s, they're really dealing with Shannon's experience in family life, which is ultimately abuse and things that go along with that. There is a lot of it. And it's very triggering for some people. It's very traumatizing and perfectly depicted. Chloe Walsh really knows how to depict this storyline in a way that will keep you aware of how people work and process and look in these kinds of circumstances. But it is extremely heavy. Because of everything that I just said in my Christian review, and because of what I said earlier, this is truly a book for someone 18 and up. I would not even recommend a teenager reading this book beforehand. It doesn't matter if the teenager has been through similar things. It is so heavy. And even me, as a 36-year-old adult, when I read these books, it sits in my heart and breaks my heart for imaginary characters. So I could not imagine a teenager who's already going through their own stuff holding the responsibility of a fictional character. I want to remind you to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can stay up to date on all of these Christian reviews of regular books, as well as me and my mom's podcast, The Journey We Share. I do want to let you know that when you do that, you are telling us that what we are doing is working. As you guys may know, we are a nonprofit. We do all of this to help you along your journey of faith. So when you like, subscribe, and hit the bell, it is a free way for you to help us know that what we're doing is working and so that we can keep doing it. I can't wait until we see you on the next one.